my name's Barnaby. I make and repair guitars as a hobby in this small workshop in Tokyo. And I'm very interested in new materials and new ways of building. And about 10 years, maybe a little more ago, a company in Finland called Flaxwood came up with a new type of guitar. What they did was they took some spruce particles and they suspended them in a resin to make this kind of acoustic material which they could mold. They could put it in molds and make instruments out of it. Now, I was very interested in it when I heard about it, and I thought I'd love to try one of these guitars, but they were a few $1,000s and I couldn't possibly justify that. Now, a couple of years ago, though, an American company called BYO Guitar started selling kits. So you could just buy the body and neck of one of these guitars and put it together yourself. So this is what you get in the mail. We can see our Flaxwood logo on the box here. The body, F-body, yellow-brown. And if we open it up, we can see the guitar just packed in here with a bit of foam. This is the neck. This is the body. And if we turn it over, we can see this back plate. And this is a kind of resonating back plate, which is supposed to give the guitar really good kind of acoustic-like qualities. There's also some inlays. And these bits and pieces, which are little bolts for the back panel, and a truss rod cover, and a nut. Apparently it's a compensated nut, so I'm looking forward to that. And oddly, some gel super glue, which is what they recommend for putting the neck in. Now, you can buy this kit in several levels of finishing. I got the basic form, but you can get it with the inlays installed, the fingerboard leveled, and the frets on. You can even get the body painted, so all you have to do is just sort of glue the two of them together and then stick on some hardware. Now, regarding parts, I got this bridge from Schaller, and what this is essentially a Les Paul style bridge. It's got the kind of tune-o-matic style thing here, the bridge posts here, but you can see springs underneath and a tremolo arm. So essentially this is a Les Paul bridge that has a tremolo on it, and this is actually used on several Flaxwood models, so I thought I'd grab one and give it a try. I also tend to wind my own pickups when I make guitars, but because this is a kit guitar, not one I'm making from scratch, I thought, what the heck? So I got a pair of pickups, which are actually active pickups. These are EMGs. I got a P60 and a P81, so these are P90 sized pickups, and these will go into the guitar, and I'm going to be very curious about how they sound. Now let's have a bit more of a look at the guitar itself and see what we've got. This is the back plate, and it's essentially a moulded piece of Flaxwood. On the Flaxwood guitars themselves, these have a little badge here. I'll put something here so it doesn't look quite so raw and unfinished. And this is supposed to resonate. I guess these holes here are so that you can string it from the back if you put in that type of tremolo, or if you put in a string-through bridge or something. The body is well made. You can see here where the back panel goes on, and they've put in little bushings too, these little brass bushings for the bolts, so that you're not going to cut into the Flaxwood. It's a little bit heavy. The Flaxwood is heavier than it looks, but because it's hollowed out, the overall feeling is quite light. And you can probably see, or you may be able to see on here, that there are seams. So the thing has come out of a mould, and this is all going to need to be sanded down. I'm going to make that nice and smooth. Also, because of the way I'm going to set up the guitar, I'm going to have volume, I'm going to have tone, and I'm going to put in a three-way switch here, which means that I'm going to cover up this little bit here. I'm planning on painting the guitar a solid colour, so it doesn't matter. The F-hole will need a bit of sanding as well. The neck is pretty cool. Again, there are mould marks which you can find along the edge here. And around the headstock itself, but it's a really, really nice thing. I don't think it's going to need too much leveling. It looks like it's what, a 12 or something, 12-inch radius. And if we grab a ruler and we put it on, It's fairly flat. It's got a little bit of a bow. A little bit of work will take that out quite quickly. Also, if you have a look here, you can see that the headstock itself has a curved top, which is pretty cool. I like that. So rather than just being a boring flat headstock, it's got a bit of a curve to it. What else about it? It's a single action truss rod, I'm guessing, from these things here. And I assume that the whole thing has been designed so that the truss rod could essentially be inserted into the fully molded neck. So the fingerboard and the neck are actually all one piece, and the channel is part of the molding process, which means that this is going to be a pretty solid proposition. Again, it feels a little tiny bit heavier than you'd expect from its size, but given the fact that the guitar is hollow, given the fact that this neck is so carefully molded, what you're probably going to get is a really light guitar at the end. It's also got a 3D joint, so if we put them together, you can see that they make a really nice, good quality fit. The only thing I'm not thrilled about with this is that there's a lip. There's a lip here between the neck and the body joint. And that lip is about 2.5 millimeters, something like that. And I really don't want that there, especially here, because when you're playing, you play up the neck, you come up high, and you know your finger will be constantly feeling that, and I don't want that to be there. So that lip is something I'm going to sand out. I'm going to resand the body so that's gone. Okay, aside from that, I'm quite impressed by it. I think it's a really cool thing, and it's a great idea. It sounds really good. My guess is that it's going to make a great guitar. Oh, one thing I should mention that they haven't done on the neck is they haven't made holes for, or included indeed the material for, side dots. So that's something I'm going to have to do myself. It's a minor annoyance, won't take me very long, but it's just something I thought I should mention. Now, the mold marks mean that there are going to be some minor modifications you have to make. And so here I am just taking a little bit of material out so that my nut will fit properly. There's just a little bit that needs to be cleared away. So for that I'm using a scalpel, and I find that this material actually works very, very well. It's you can work it with a scalpel, you can work it with a chisel. It's quite an easy to deal with material. It's not soft by any means, but it's a bit like a kind of toughish MDF or something. Okay, so now I'm going to measure the scale length. So I push the nut in and I run the ruler down the line created by the middle of the inlays, line it up against the spot for the strap pin at the back there. Okay, and holding the ruler straight, I go to the 12th fret and see what I've got. And at the 12th fret, we've got about just under 324. It's about 323.8.9. Okay, so that means my scale length would be about, again, just under 648 millimeters. And if I remember correctly, 647.7 is 25.5 inch scale length, which would seem to make sense. So I'm going to assume that this is a 25.5 inch scale length instrument, which will mean if I go to 647.7, we set this in place, we hold it there, we hold it up, 647.7. So that gives me a reference point which I will use to set up my bridge. Now this bridge has some space for compensating the saddles, but in order to make it slightly easier, I'm just going to offset the bridge slightly. And I've had a look at some pictures of Flaxwood guitars, and I've noticed that in fact they do this when they use this precise model of bridge. Rather than keeping it straight, they offset it very slightly. Alright, I've encountered the first minor stumble, which is that when I marked the bridge here, and I put in my 2 spots with the awl, at one point the awl went right through. And that's because they've moulded into the body holes for a different bridge, and they've just sort of been covered on the top. So the shallow bridge has different spaced and sized posts and will need to be at a slightly different angle from the other bridge that they put in here, which I'm guessing is a Goto 510 or something by the spacing. Anyway, looking at this, obviously if I drill and I put the shallow posts in, the bridge is going to have a lot of play, it's going to move around, it's going to be a disaster. So I need to fill these up. Now, I've had a look around and I found some epoxy putty, and this is the sort of stuff that you can use in repairing cars and things. Normally you'd be reluctant to use it in a guitar because, you know, you don't want to put a putty like this in the beautiful wood. However, because this is flaxwood and it's already an artificial material, I figure it's okay. Here we go. Alright. So, with our Bondo in place, I can put this aside for 24 hours. I'll leave the neck as well. One thing I will do while I've got a knife out is I'll just give it a very quick scrape and see how easy it is to work. How long it takes me to get rid of that joining line. It doesn't take very much effort at all, which is really good. So I think I'm going to be able to get a very nice effect with this guitar in the end. Okay, so for now, that means I'm going to put the guitar aside and I'll come back, and I'm hoping I'll be able to spend a little bit of time on it tomorrow. Cheers.